Bradenton. Had a really good weekend last weekend.
Yep. Had a really good weekend.
I don't know. I don't think we thought that weekend was going to turn out quite like it did. But car did great. Didn't have any issues really. I mean, a couple little ones to start with, but
yeah, just started the season. Bugs, I guess.
Just a good time. Glad we finally got to make the trip down to Florida and take a car with us.
Yeah, it's a lot different taking the car.
Yes.
Lot more fun taking the car and all that. Thankfully, it was not tore apart.
Yeah, that was a good thing.
Yeah.
Mine's tore apart, but that's all right.
Yeah. Really enjoyed hanging out with everybody.
Yeah.
Yandro and Alex. And
good time. Good
Mike
times with all our Florida guys,
Waylon.
Georgia guys, Greg and all those guys.
Yeah.
Just
had a ball.
Always good people.
Yeah.
But a lot of publicity this last week, and thank you to TIG Performance and Mincer and Holly,
Big time,
NOS. I mean, tons of people have shared stuff. We appreciate it all. I mean, that was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years of hard work into this car, and
yeah.
it's nice to see it pay off a little bit. But I guess the post that Tick put up kind of told a little bit of the story about why Alan wanted to build this car, and we kind of thought it would be a good idea to sit down and tell that story, I guess. And most people around here, at least local, know it or know bits and pieces of it. And
yeah. I'm sure some people are tired of hearing it, but it is the story nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And then we got talking a little bit and said, well, hell, maybe we just tell the story of, I guess, kind of how you and I started hanging out. Because, I mean, that's kind of part of that story.
It is.
And so, I just thought maybe just a little backstory between the two of us, maybe to start with. And guys, if I want to apologize, heads up, we're kind of just going off the cuff here. This may be a 30-minute video, and it may turn into two-hour videos. We're just going to kind of go back and forth, try to remember some time frames, because
right.
neither one of our memories are great. But
no, I guess starting off, I think the first thing I remember is meeting you at Shadyside.
Yeah.
You had your Trans Am.
Yep.
And we were down there with Andy's car.
Right.
And I believe, if I'm not badly mistaken, I believe that was maybe late September, early October 2014.
Right.
And if I remember right too, I had, at that point, I know I had my Pro Charge Z06.
Yep.
And I don't remember if I had it at the track or not, or if we just took Andy's, but
I think y'all were just down there in Andy's car that day.
Probably so. That was right before his daughter was born, and I feel like that was probably the case. I feel like we was going down there and just having a good time with it before the car was done for the year.
Right.
And time was taken up elsewhere.
And I think that's the only time you and I spoke that I can remember or met in person until after the accident. I think. We talked to Union.
We talked to Union.
That's right.
And then we.
And that was later that year, correct?
That was later that year, and then we had a few meetups in Asheville.
That's right. Back when we were cruising street cars anyway.
Yeah, back doing streetcar stuff during the middle of the week, late at night.
Yeah.
I met you a few times out there.
That's right.
And then I guess after the accident, you had sold your Trans Am somewhere around that time.
Yeah. Just shortly thereafter, I got a call from the previous owner, wanted the car back. We ended up. I was actually, weirdly enough, I was in Gainesville, Florida when he called me for work, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit and settled on the price. When I came back home, he bought the car, and that was probably within a few weeks of the accident. And then it didn't take me about a week or two, and I decided I was going to start looking again, and just kind of reached out to you
Yep.
on Facebook and started kind of picking your brain a little bit. And the next thing you know, showed up with a C5.
Yep. Yeah, told me you knew I wasn't ready to start messing with anything just yet, but when I was, you wanted me to help you do it.
Yeah.
And that was the start of a great friendship.
Yeah. I mean,
we definitely had a good time with that car. Had our hands full with it. Seemed like it wanted to fight us every time we turned around.
a good time might be a stretch. We there was a lot going on with that thing.
We had good times. I don't necessarily know it involved the car. We had some good times.
Yeah, we spent a lot of nights, late nights out here in the shop, working on that old thing. 3 different motors. Of course, coming out here, it was going to stay a street car and just give it a little extra horsepower, and the next thing you know, it's got a stroked LS3 in it, and a bunch of nitrous on top of it.
Which is interesting. The LS3 that we put in that car ended up being the motor that was in this one not too long ago that went 520s.
Yep.
And all we really did was change the cam and put a direct port on it.
Damn, yeah, that's it.
That was all we changed in that, and that was it. I mean,
it was a good run motor, and probably didn't make 8 passes in my car.
No.
The last time I had the Corvette out, exploded the differential on the starting line at Shadyside, and took it home and put it on jack stands for 3 or 4 months, and never even looked at it. And then ended up posting it for sale as a roller. Our other buddy John Boy was working on a Camaro at the time. He had given me a deposit on the motor, and I ended up getting a job offer down in South Carolina. Things were moving pretty quick. I got an offer on the car. We called Alan up and kind of made that deal real quick. And
yeah,
you came over to the house and we jerked the motor out of the car and stuck it in the back of your truck, and off you went.
Yep. It's kind of one of those deals. Like, there was nothing wrong with the motor that's in the car. It's just, you get it together, especially us guys that are boost impaired. We're constantly looking for something else, and I quickly realized that the motor I had, probably when we started building this car, would have been all right, but things are rapidly changing. And if you're building a car right now and you're not building it for what's coming up in 3 years, and you're behind the ball.
It's a fact. So let's back up a little bit. When do you think, were you looking for this car when you found it, or did you find it and it sparked something?
I was not looking for the car. I scrolled through Facebook. I mean, this was probably, the accident was in January, and in 2015. Probably, I won't say it was March or April. Brandon Raines posted the car on Turbo Boy as a roller. It had a 9-inch in it from Midwest Chassis. Had all the factory wiring in it. All the interior was in it, and it was a complete car sitting on race stars. And I looked at it, and I didn't know if I was going to get back in the F body again or not after that wreck. And but I never forgot it. And then I guess we had messed around with yours a little bit more. And probably, I guess it was June or July of 2015, car came back up for sale. I had, between that time, I'd probably got back on there and searched for it again, and I didn't know Brandon at all at that point. Couldn't remember who posted it for sale, where I saw it for sale, nothing. And then one day we're down here in the shop, and me and Dad were working on something. I don't remember what it was, and I saw it again, and I was like, man. I looked at Dad and I said, me and Andy talked about building a pewter stripper car, and because his car was an SS, and it was still fairly nice. I mean, it was still full weight. Yeah, it had all the interior was in it, and he was talking about keeping it as a street car, and I really didn't care. I was having a lot of fun traveling around with them. I have I have just as much fun helping on cars as I do having my own.
Same.
To me, it's not so much about having the car; it's about the people you meet because of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we Dad and I sat down and talked about it a little bit, and I wasn't sure I wanted to get it. And he convinced me to shoot the guy a message and just kind of see what happens. And so I did. I shot Brandon a message and kind of told him, that I was somewhat interested in it. He pulled the ad. He didn't really want to sell the car, but at the same time, he wanted somebody to do something with it. He had a lot of life going on at that time. I think he was having or had already had a son.
Yep.
That was very young and trying to make a move and doing some other things, and it was just he didn't want to get rid of it, but he kind of wanted to get rid of it. And so we talked back and forth and kind of built a little bit of a friendship there. And next thing you know, we're loaded up, heading to the Gulf of Florida to pick the thing up.
That was quite a trip.
That was a trip. So yeah, bought it in, was it 2015 or was it 2016?
I can't remember. I was thinking 16.
It was 2016.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So, we got down there and bought the car, loaded up, brought it home. Car sat here for probably 5 or 6 months. We collected parts. We had a couple of Camaro rollers and had bought the whole front suspension, came over and stuff like that before, and had it sitting on a shelf and just didn't know what we were going to do with it.
Right.
At that point, because I'd bought it before the accident, and I was dead set I was never going to sit back in an F body again. I was done with it. Just didn't want to do anything with it. So during that time, after we bought it, we sold the Pro Charge Vet.
Yep.
Took Ryan over to RPM a bunch of money, wadded up in a zip tie.
I remember that day as well.
Told him to start ordering some parts, and we started ordering parts, and we got busy.
We sure did. And
Thanks.
worked on it for a year and a half
Yeah, year and a half.
before it saw the track.
Yeah. We of course we had the cell panels bubbling up on it,
Yeah.
so we cut the roof off of it and bought a carbon fiber roof, mainly because you couldn't buy a factory roof for them anymore. So we did that. Started getting stuff ready to paint. I was working at Harry's Body Shop then. We carted the thing over there to start doing some paint.
Pops cut a hole in the door.
Pops got a hole in the door, so we had to get that fixed. And we went and filled some holes in the bumper, like where the factory grill goes in, and paint the hood, and fix that door.
Yep.
And while it was there, there's about 5 different colors of pewter, if you didn't know that. If you're not a GM fan,
Yeah.
believe it or not, that is not a generic pewter. I have no idea what the differences are. If you put them in front of me, I couldn't tell you. But
I couldn't
anyway,
either.
we run to get the exact paint code, and I pulled up the build sheet, and lo and behold, it was built on Andy's birthday.
I remember you calling me that day and telling me that.
Yeah, that was pretty overwhelming. So it was. We knew we were going to build the car in his memory, and it was just special.
Yeah.
From the time we got it, it was special. It was the car I wanted. It was color I wanted. Yeah, I went and looked for a pewter car. I was floored at that point. After we bought the car, at some point or the other, pieces of Andy's car
That's right.
started showing up for sale.
Yeah. Was it Isaac?
Isaac Wheeler.
Reached out to you,
Yep.
or reached out to somebody to get to you. I can't remember.
somebody saw the post and started asking questions.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was, but somebody recognized a couple of different pieces that were damaged, actually. I believe it was the rear end.
Yeah.
The rear end was bent backwards. And shot the guy a message and told the guy that I was interested in it and I'd be calling him, and he pulled that post down because he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know the story behind the car, or even that the car was local.
Yeah, he bought it in an auction, hadn't he?
Bought it at insurance auto auction to get the 6-speed out of it.
Yeah.
So I contacted him and bought the motor, wiring harness, computer. I've got the only good body piece off of the car. The fender's still hanging up in the shop.
Yeah. We ended up getting the transmission case because that's what's in my car.
Yep.
Now.
We got.
How did that happen?
What we ended up doing is told him that we had Major Freeman.
He couldn't get the yoke out of the back.
Couldn't get the yoke out of it.
That's right.
And wanted somebody to look at it. And we've got a heck of a guy out here that at that point in time we're doing our transmissions, and Major got it and started taking it apart and ended up having to cut the tail housing because the yoke, and when we hit some stumps backwards, it shoved the yoke into the tail shaft and bent it bad enough where you couldn't get it out. So I contacted Isaac and told him, kind of what was going on. He's like, man, it's not going to do me any good. So I ended up buying that stuff from him. And I had Andy's Pro 5.0 shifter,
Which was in the car.
it was in the car up until this year. We put a TIG shifter in it. But yeah, I mean, it was just stuff just kind of started falling together.
Yep.
So I guess that leads us to getting it started and making passes and everything.
So the first motor in the car was a stroke
LS1.
LS1.
It was 373 inch, 243 heads, and a single plane intake. That motor made like 520 on motor, and we sprayed it 300.
Went out and won the first race.
Won the first race. But we also had made like 80 passes in the car.
Yeah, we did a bunch of testing in the car.
Bunch of testing. We went pretty much every Thursday or Friday night that the weather was clear and we didn't have something going on with my son. We were at the racetrack. Shadyside Union, and even went to Farmington. Made a bunch of passes at Farmington. That motor ended up going 560s.
Yep. And this was still with a diaphragm clutch as well.
Still a diaphragm clutch.
Yep.
Had a Monster LT1 SC, I think, in it.
I think so.
And just going out there and having a bunch of fun.
That's right.
It was a good motor, but the 416 came open.
Right.
So we took the solid roller stuff out of that motor, turned it into kind of a street motor, and put it in another Camaro, and put my solid roller stuff out of the 373 and the 416, and went racing. Car picked up a bunch of mile an hour and started easing up on the ET. Took a little bit to really get there. We started. That's when that change really is what started showing us the issue we were going to have with the clutch.
Yep. That was going to be my next question, because I can't remember exactly when in that time frame we ended up going to an adjustable clutch.
Well, we had. Let's see. We were running that Monster.
And then we went to an RPS.
And then we started having issues because the Monster wouldn't hold the power from the 416. So we took the Monster out. It was still in pretty good shape, and sold it to somebody for next to nothing, and bought an RPS triple, and it held all the power.
Yep.
It just did not have any give. I mean, you really couldn't do a whole lot with it. You were either getting too much wheel speed, it was going to the bumper, or it was just a turd.
and then it grenaded itself.
Yep. Then it grenaded. Shot dowel pins through the scatter shield.
Yeah, that was impressive.
That was fairly impressive. And at that point, we were having enough issues to where it was like, okay, what we're trying to do here is dumb.
Yeah.
And some other folks were running adjustable clutches. Wesley Evans.
Yep. Wesley
Actually,
and Yondro are the two that come to mind.
Yeah, Wesley Evans is the one that taught me into doing it finally.
Yeah.
He also taught me into going to a dry system and to radios. And he was right on all three.
Yep.
That has been, those three things have been huge going from what we were doing before.
Yeah.
So big thanks to Real Teal. But yeah, I mean, it's got the adjustable clutch, put it on radials, and I guess this is over the course. I mean, we're going flying through it, but I mean,
Yeah,
416 was in that thing for 3 years.
Yeah, it was in it for a while. It made a bunch of passes. We're picking up a lot of time here. I'm thinking end of 19, beginning of 20 is when we started going really fast with the 416, I think.
That's when we started going really fast. I mean, we've made a handful of like 550s, 560s, 128, 129, 130 mile an hour passes. Won a bunch of no prep stuff.
Yeah.
I'll say a bunch. We won a lot of them that we entered.
Yeah, I think 20 we did. We won 3 or 4 races there. It seemed like
we won
back there for a minute.
Won 4 races before we put it on radio.
Yeah.
And then just finally paid attention and put radials on
and fought that a little bit until we went to that track round.
Yeah, thought that and trying to figure that stuff out, trying to see what we needed to do with it, and having no idea about lower control arm angles,
tire pressure,
nothing. We were at a loss, and picked up 2/10 at the track rental.
Yeah, and every pass we made, I think we made 3 or 4 passes that night. It was at Shadyside. Every time we came back, we'd make a little adjustment and go to the track and run another personal best. And it was neat because we were seeing, the car was doing what we were telling it to do every pass.
Yes.
And we were picking up every pass. And I don't what did we end up going that night? 20, 24, 26?
Let's see. The fastest it went, that when the track rental was on slicks.
I thought that was on the radio.
No, we were still on slicks.
Okay.
And then after the rental, we put on the radio.
I got you.
But with the
radios
slicks,
was a Piedmont.
radials was a Piedmont.
That's right.
We with the radials, the adjustable clutch, and everything else, we went from running our first pass off the trailer was a 552.
Yep.
It was a personal best.
Yep.
And then by the end of the night, we had went to a 534.
I think that's right.
And had picked up like 3 or 4 mile an hour.
Yep. And then the following race went to Piedmont
On radials.
on a radio, and the first pass went.
A 524.
Yeah. Picked up a 10th.
And another 2 mile an hour.
Yeah. And at that point, hadn't changed anything.
Right.
We just bolted the radials on and went.
Yep. So, we that's where that went, and then because we'd run that 416 so much, we were 524 sounds like it was fast for what we were doing, but in reality, it's not.
In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't.
Not for what we were trying to do with it. And who we were trying to race.
So that was the end of 20.
That was the end of 20.
So then we ran last year, which of course nobody got to race a lot with COVID.
No.
But we got to race a good bit last year. I mean, we had a few
Last
times.
half of the year.
Yeah, last half of the year we had a.
Well, it took us a while too because we cut the firewall and the fenders and put the fender exit headers on.
Yeah.
That was a project.
Yeah.
Especially there's a lot of structure in there, so we had to add bars.
Yeah.
We were waiting on some stuff for the motor.
And this is with the motor after the 416.
Yeah, this is with the current setup now. And it probably took 3 or 4 months to get everything situated after that race in Piedmont. And then it was just, we started having some other issues. It's just, running out of time and all that. And then Atkins got our motor done. Went and picked it up, got it in, headers and all that stuff fit for the most part. Had to do a little more massaging with the new motor in it. Got it running and dynoed it last July.
I think so.
And so here we are. I mean, we went and run some 28 versus 275. We went.
Yeah, we've done some silly stuff, but
yeah.
all just to get on a good track more than
Yeah.
anything. I mean, it was all testing for us. But.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's.
And then in the middle of all that, so back up to the end of 16 or 17, end of 17 is when I moved to South Carolina. So I sold my car. Alan bought the motor. I've basically just been crew chief and helping him wrench on his car. So 2 years ago this May, so May 2020, I decided, all right, I'm ready to buy another car.
Yep.
Like we didn't have enough to do with one.
Right. Well, and I got laid off due to COVID
Yeah.
in April of 2020.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was only so many projects at the house I could do. I believe I'd pulled every piece of grass out of the gravel and weeded every weed.
Yeah.
I mean.
So Alan and I start, as soon as he hears I may be interested in looking at a roller, the messages start flying back and forth.
Yeah.
And how we decided on one in Missouri, I to this day, I'm not real sure how that worked out.
That's the one you said you liked. We narrowed it down to 2.
One in Missouri, and I think the other one was Illinois, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, and it didn't have as much cage.
Right.
And it didn't have the front end.
That's right.
It basically had a like a 12-point cage.
That's right.
With maybe one bar, like they had started on the funny car cage.
Yeah.
And it had the factory front end, and then it was between that car and this one that had the lift-off nose and
within $1,000 of each other.
Yeah,
if I'm
I
not
was
mistaken.
within $1,000. The one that you got was just as clean.
Yeah.
It just it needed some love.
Yep. So it'd been sitting a little bit. Reached out to the guy. We kind of went back and forth a little bit. Alan and I. Of course, we had to get our weekends together. I think we ended up being a couple weeks before we could make the trip.
Yeah.
We left at 1 o'clock on a Saturday morning from here.
Yep.
And got back at 2 o'clock Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Drove 25 hours straight. Straight to Missouri and straight back on some of the worst roads I've ever been on in my life.
Yep. For sure. Absolutely.
But so yeah, we needed another project evidently. So here we are, a little over a year and a half later. We loaded up my car tonight. It goes to the dyno next Saturday. Of course, Alan's. I don't really think we've got a lot to do to it at this point as far as being ready to race again.
Change oil.
We do need to
Run
change
through the
oil.
valves.
Yeah.
Nut and bolted.
I think the next race is in April. I think I may say in one of my posts, we've made it a point, I guess, the last 4 or 5 years now to try to get down to one of the races in Florida every year. I don't think we went last year. I think John Boy and I went to FL2K in 20.
Yeah.
And then last year was just a screwed up. We didn't know what races were going to happen, and we ended up just staying local. But when we made that decision, actually, I guess 4 or 5 months ago, my intention, or I guess our intention, was hoping to take my car down to Bradenton for streetcar takeover.
It was, because we really never intended on racing this car quarter mile very much, if at all.
And then the time just got to us, waiting on parts. I know everybody's felt that pain in the last few months and probably going to continue to feel it for a while, but just made the decision we were going to take this car down there and it ended up being a great decision.
Yes, yes, it has.
So I guess moving forward, I get a lot of people. His mom asked me today or yesterday, "Are you guys going to be racing a lot against each other?" And I think you and I have talked about it several times. I think obviously the cars are going to be in the same class. I think what our idea has been since the start was to race mine primarily quarter mile and race Alan's car primarily eighth. There's going to be a couple races a year that we both want to go to.
Right.
And I think that's going to run us a little thin on the crew, but besides that,
we'll figure it out.
I did tell his mom, the one thing I told his mom is I wanted pictures of us on the starting line together.
Yeah.
Just because that's something we've never gotten to do. And
no, we haven't, and it's been a long time coming.
It has been
a lot of work.
Yeah,
we have definitely put in a lot of work on both of our, on both ends of the deal. It's definitely been a ton of work.
Yeah, and learning or trying to learn turbos. I'm not gonna say learning because I don't know anything about it yet.
I ain't learned a daggum thing yet.
I know it fires up and runs and it's got good oil pressure, but past that, I couldn't tell you if things are working right or not. I'm leaving that up to Mr. Atkins next week.
The turbo spins. It's doing something. It is doing something.
So we'll see how that ends up, but I don't know. Like I said before, I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of tell the story of how this car came to be and how Alan and I got to be such close friends and really part of the family. His mom and dad have taken me in as really part of their family, and it's a special relationship, and we, I don't know whether it's me behind the wheel and him crew chiefing or him behind the wheel and me crew chiefing, we don't miss too many beats, and things just always seem to go pretty good no matter which way we're going. And more than anything, we have a good time.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing.
It is.
We do a lot of dumb stuff with our money, but we enjoy it.
Yeah. Some of it I don't even know it's our money. I think some of it's the bank's money.
That's true.
But that's all right.
They'll get it back eventually.
Yeah, one of these days. But no, it's I think that pretty well wraps that up.
That pretty well sums it up. We got done a little quicker than I thought we was gonna get done.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do a little more in depth on the backstory of this car.
Sure.
And then probably need to do. There's probably a whole conversation about how Atkins became a big part of our program.
I think it is. I think that is a good conversation. They do an awful lot for us.
Yes, they do. Just a very good deal for us, and it has been.
And I think anybody in the stick shift world that's being honest would say, if you've reached out to Atkins or ever talked to him or asked him any kind of question, technical wise, he doesn't care to share any information he's got, and that doesn't. Most people just don't do that.
No, they don't.
And that means a lot to us. I mean, he's always been over backwards to help us, even though we're all racing in the same class, we're racing against each other. He's just never had a problem sharing any information that he thinks might help us.
I mean, we're talking. We raced against him back in the horsepower junkie days.
Yep.
Over at Dragon Rights.
Yep. Over
at Piedmont, and even at that point, I didn't know really who he was. Tick was still fairly young, and we outran him with a stock motor, and he had a 408 car there. Like, give that jab in there every once in a while. There's a picture of us looking at the time slip, and they're loading their car up somewhere in the background. And but no, it's definitely been a very good. I would like to say it's friendship.
Absolutely. I mean, it started out as a relationship, but I absolutely agree it's a friendship. I mean, I probably message him more than he wants me to because I'm sure he's busy and wondering what the hell I want. But Jonathan,
always there to answer.
Yeah, Jonathan's a good dude. He never does not answer a question I ask. That's just the way it works. Anyhow,
Yeah, we got a couple of good sit downs if anybody's interested in them. There's
we got some good ones.
There's a lot goes into these things.
We need to get John Boy involved though.
Yeah, we do.
We'll try to get him out here tonight. He wasn't interested.
It's definitely been an experience with this car.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that just have worked out.
Yeah.
And met some amazing people that I wouldn't have got to meet otherwise. And
that's probably another good story to tell. And I'm not going to get into it here, but going back to the Ted's Taco Shack days and kind of how we were introduced, I'll say, to the Kentucky/Ohio guys and the Florida guys.
Yep, Florida and Georgia guys.
Yeah, because that wasn't all good relationships to begin with.
No, it wasn't. We have.
There was a little bit of ill will there for a minute.
For a minute, I was fairly new to Facebook at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was still learning who was who and what was what. So yeah, I mean it's definitely.
But again, it ended up meeting a lot of cool people, and there's not, I don't think one of them I've met that's just not good people.
I know
everybody we raced with.
Everybody we raced with, the people we've ran into along the way.
Yes.
I wouldn't care if tomorrow you got up and you know what, you're not racing anymore.
Yeah.
At that point, I could actually sit down and say, you know what, the experience with the car is one thing, but just the people that have we've raced with, we've had drivers meetings with, that have we've had to reach out to for some questions, or have reached out to us for questions.
Yep. That happens a bunch. Both in both directions.
Yep. People that we buy parts from. I mean it goes down the line to just random run-ins with folks. You have no idea. And if you're one of those people, I really cherish
Absolutely
those moments.
I can't remember all their names, and I know you can't either. There's been a ton of them, but
especially over the last 5 years,
it means
running the car and everything.
It's all. It never fails to surprise me how far of a reach Facebook, and I still don't see it. But this past weekend is a good example to me, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name because I will murder his last name. Peter with the black GTO that was down there doing sick week. Guy from Canada.
Peter, is it Rich?
I thought it was Peter. If it's not, I apologize.
Yeah, dude with black 65 GTO, big block Pontiac, 6B.
Stick shift car.
That won sick week.
Yeah, runs drag week, runs Rocky Mountain Race Week, won the stick shift classic sick week this past week.
Wonderful guy.
Walked up to us, started talking to us, has been following this car.
Yeah.
Knew a lot about it. Of course, we know exactly who he is.
You're paying attention to stuff that was in magazines with this car.
Yes.
Hot rod power tours
Right.
and stuff like that. And I've always loved the car, and I don't get starstruck, but when somebody like that walks up to your trailer, that you've paid attention to,
Right.
that's doing the things that you like to do.
That's cool.
Have made a name for themselves. I mean, he is an awesome competitor.
And was just super cool.
Just a great guy. Him and the two guys he had with him, very awesome. It's stuff like that to me that means a lot. We've had a lot of relationships have took different turns.
There's been one or two.
There's
been one or two. They don't all end up great. But
they don't. But at the same time, I wouldn't trade meeting those people for anything. We've definitely had a good time.
Yep.
Grown up a little bit.
Probably a bunch, yeah.
Probably a bunch. A little bit of humble.
A little bit. Quite a bit more humble, I'd say, than we were when we first started this deal.
Oh yeah,
But y'all know drag racing will humble you as quick as anything will.
you got that right. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like we got a lot more we could talk about, but I don't want to bore everybody.
Yeah, I think we're good for this one. As always, give us some feedback on this, guys. Comment, like, subscribe to the page. Let us know what you think about it. Is there something you want to see different? Like Alan said, we've got a ton we can talk about like this on just the last 5 or 6 years of us fumbling our way through this stuff. But if there's anything you guys want to see, hell, if you don't want to comment on this, shoot me a message or shoot Alan a message.
Oh, yeah.
Or shoot a message to Morgan Racing Facebook page or even on Instagram now. But I guess that's all we got.
Yeah, anything you want to see, if there's a moment you've been a part of, if you want us to talk about, be glad to. Or something you've heard about, let us know.
Any questions?
Be glad to do it. It's a lot easier to talk about it than it is to type it.
That's right.
So, yeah.
You guys have a good evening.
See you.